Okay guys, I'm just at home, probably going to set off shortly for another overnight trip. Just before I do, I figured that I would just do a quick review of the 12 volt system. Before I head off, I just emptied out the driver's side of the tray just so I could walk through the 12 volt system again and do a quick little review and pass on some knowledge that I didn't know prior to the trip to Fraser Island. If you watched the episode, I think it may have been episode the morning going over the Fraser, or the last bit of the from home to Fraser episode, where I talk about having some issues with my 12 volt system or the batteries. So what actually happened was I was losing a lot of my volts. A little bit different than the reason why I redid the headboard in the previous video. The whole trip up I had the 12.5, 13 volts without any issues. So the day prior to going across to Fraser Island, the volts started to drop, and at one point there the volts actually dropped down to probably about 11.5, which is, if any of you know your batteries, that's when you can cook your batteries basically, or stuff your batteries up. They don't like to recover from that. So I rang the guys from Thumper and had a chat with them, and they asked if I had rejuvenated my battery before the trip and also had done a charge on it. So looking into it a little bit more, I've worked out that before I do a big trip in the future, or even once a month, I'm just going to whack this system on 240 volts and let the projector Pro Charge recharge it for me. So what that actually does, or what the projector Pro Charge has, it's got a I think it's called a Rejuvenate, but what that does, I think it slowly puts a charge into the battery, or your batteries accumulate calcium, and therefore it doesn't allow the battery to charge correctly. So what the I suppose the rejuvenation of the battery cells does, it slowly breaks that calcium down, and therefore hopefully you can save your batteries. Now obviously it's not advisable to let your batteries run so low and over such a period of time. I ended up being on Fraser Island for 8 days and had no way of doing this. So thankfully when I got home, put it straight on the 240 volts, 24 hours, and then the batteries have come back again. I was lucky. I figured that I'd have to replace both batteries, which if you know anything about batteries, if you wire them in together, if one battery dies, it will take out the other one based off, they deplete at the same rate. So generally speaking, if you lose one battery, it's going to deplete the other one and put and probably stuff that up as well. So you're replacing both batteries. Other than that, the system's working perfectly. Cannot complain about anything. I'm constantly got 12.6 volts or above. And I believe what actually caused me problem was that I was running the Engel fridge freezer as a freezer constantly for 24 hours a day. And it is an older Engel freezer or fridge. And I believe that it's just not as efficient as what we're making today. So I think that's where my problem happened, because since I've taken that out, I haven't had an issue. So what that tells me is that 2 batteries should get me through, like for an overnight or 2 nights camping. But the one solar panel, 160 watts, isn't sufficient if I'm going to run a freezer as well. So I'm probably going to have to look into a second solar panel if I want to run that system for longer trips. So I'll just run you through how to set the battery charger up. Okay, so I've just plugged it in and you can probably hear it. And I've just gone into the manual. So it's a 6-stage automatic charging device. Rejuvenation, as described by the factory, the rejuvenation stage is manually initiated and delivers a 24-hour high frequency intermittent charge that breaks down sulfation from the battery's plates. Upon completion, the charger will proceed to a soft start. So to select it, so obviously it's a good idea to read manuals. Most of us don't, and I'll be honest, I didn't read it, so I didn't know the full capabilities of this charger. So if you run your batteries, or if your batteries are running down and you keep running them, you're going to end up with that build up on the cells. And what the rejuvenation does is try to break that down, and hopefully it saves your battery. So I'll run through the process of how to set that up. So it also says the rejuvenation mode can restore batteries from a deeply discharged state by breaking down the sulfation and revitalising the battery cells. A rejuvenation charge should be performed periodically to optimise the battery's health and performance. So there's a 21 amp projector battery charger. So what you've got to do for rejuvenation is hold down the battery type button for about 3 seconds until the rejuvenation LED, which is the red one, flashes. And you can see it there. It's actually orange, but the charger will be in this mode for about 24 hours, but can be manually stopped by holding the battery type down for 3 seconds, and then the light will turn off. So that's actually a handy bit of knowledge to be aware of. As I said, I wasn't aware of it, and it could be a quite expensive little exercise if you're not aware that for whatever reason your batteries, the amount of storage or the voltage that they drop, you can harm your batteries and permanently stuff them up where they won't come back. I was fortunate that I was able to rejuvenate them and get them back to full charge. But if it was left as an ongoing thing, or if you did that multiple times, you will kill the batteries. And as I said, that will be an expensive exercise to replace batteries. It's given me the lesson that before I do a extensive trip, or even once a month, that I should throw the batteries on 240 volts, do the rejuvenation, which will clean the cells and allow for the longer battery life. So in regards to the inverter, I've only used it once or twice. It works perfectly for me. What I would recommend is, if you're going to use an inverter, run your car so that it can keep the batteries topped up. They do suck a bit of juice, and depending on what appliance you're using, and how many watts that appliance uses will depend on how much of your battery that it sucks up. So I'd recommend you run your ignition, kick the car over, and that way you can keep the batteries sort of charged whilst you're using your inverter. Batteries, there's no issue with them, which I'm really happy with, other than the fact they're AGM and weigh a ton. When they do finally die, hopefully in a couple of years time, they'll last me a few more years. When they do finally die, I will put lithium in. So I'm looking at the iTech batteries, and if I did that, I possibly would also, well, I would have to replace the DC to DC charger, so I'd go with iTech there as well. In regards to everything else, the Victron is working perfectly. I've got it connected back to my phone. So in regards to the Victron Smart Shunt, it's working perfectly, and that's what actually brought my attention to the problems I was having whilst I was on Fraser Island. That my little voltmeter on the other side was dropping, but I could tell straight away as soon as I opened up the Victron, I could tell that it just wasn't charging properly. So currently I've got 13.3 volts in the batteries, and it's a really good device that you can actually get a bit of a history as well. Since redoing the headboard, rewiring those few little loose connections, reconfiguring it the way I did, I've had no issues. I've had no unexplainable issues. So the issue at Fraser Island, I could work out why it was happening, and I didn't have the knowledge of what the Pro Charger or how to look after my batteries better. Got that knowledge now, so once a month I come out, plug it in and let it do its thing. Just want to say really big thank you to everybody who's jumped on board, subscribed, even the people who just will watch. They might not have a Google account, but they're still watching, so really appreciate it. Leave comments, give me some feedback, tell me what you'd like to see, some of these cook-ups. I'll give it a go. The results might not be that great, but everything so far has turned out pretty good. So if you've got any ideas, any destinations, especially if they're, say 2 hours from Newcastle, I like to get away for quick 1-night trips, 2-night trips. Leave comments, share some of your destinations, and I'll try to get out there. Also, if you don't mind sharing my channel, I'd appreciate it heaps. I have no social media. Probably something I'm going to have to look into. But if you guys are happy with what you're seeing, I'd appreciate if you'd share it. Thanks again, guys. Take care, travel safely, and hope you enjoy the next couple of videos.